Consider a strange mercy of history. When Nineveh fell in 612 BCE, fire ran through the royal palaces. Yet the clay tablets in the king's library were not wholly undone. Many were hardened by that same heat, and among the survivors was the Epic of Gilgamesh. So let us begin not with a ruin, but with a lesson. A great library is never only a chamber of shelves. It is a living order of patrons, scribes, scholars, routes, and materials. And such places rarely vanish in a single stroke. They fade by war, policy, neglect, and chance. In this inquiry, we follow three ancient libraries, Alexandria, Pergamum, and Nineveh, asking of each four things: who founded it, how it spread knowledge, what it contained, and how it disappeared. Along the way, we shall see that papyrus, parchment, and clay often shape survival more than legend does. We turn first to Alexandria. In the early 3rd century BCE, the Ptolemaic kings made learning part of royal power. A later source, the letter of Aristeas, links Demetrius of Phalerum to the founding, though that tale must be handled with caution. What stands on firmer ground comes from Strabo. He describes the Mouseion within the royal quarter: covered walks, a hall for discourse, a shared house for scholars, and a priest at its head. This was not a public room where any citizen borrowed scrolls. It was a court-backed academy, a place where study, prestige, and governance stood close together. Its holdings gathered much of the Greek canon, Homer, tragedy, philosophy, along with the scholarship used to order and compare those texts. Later tradition gives Callimachus the great catalogue called the Penacase. The catalogue itself is lost, but the ambition behind it is plain. Alexandria sought not merely to store books, but to sort the world of letters. Its knowledge spread through the harbor and the schoolroom alike. Galen preserves the report that books brought by ship were seized for copying, the originals kept, and copies returned marked "from the ships." From that machinery came edited texts, commentaries, and learned standards that traveled outward across the Mediterranean. Its disappearance, however, was slow. In 48 and 47 BCE, during Caesar's war in Alexandria, fire damaged stores of books, though the scale remains disputed. In 391 CE, the Serapeum was destroyed under imperial policy, and whether a working library remained there is uncertain. Later still came the tale of a caliph burning the library once and for all, but modern scholarship judges that story to be a medieval legend. Thus Alexandria did not perish in a single night. Now let us climb to Pergamum in Asia Minor, where the Attalid kings built their city high upon the acropolis. Strabo speaks of their sacred buildings and their libraries, and archaeology places the chief library beside the sanctuary of Athena. The setting matters. In Pergamum, learning stood openly within the city's ceremonial heart. Here too the collection centered on Greek literature and scholarship. Yet the library also declared civic ambition. Its reading rooms, sculpture, and elevated site made knowledge part of the city's dignity. Pergamum spread learning not only through books, but through material craft and royal patronage. Parchment, later associated so strongly with the city that the Latin term pergamena recalls its name, gained distinction here. Pliny preserves the story that a Ptolemaic papyrus embargo drove Pergamum to refine parchment. Historians treat that as tradition rather than settled fact. Yet the deeper point remains: techniques of writing can carry ideas as surely as ships do. Scholars, gifts, and texts move through Attalid networks across the Aegean. As for its end, Pergamum did not meet one dramatic blaze. It passed into Roman rule, and its institutions were absorbed into a larger order. Over time, the holdings were likely scattered, reused, or transferred. The famous story that Mark Antony sent 200,000 rolls from Pergamum to Cleopatra appears in Plutarch only as an accusation. We should treat it as disputed, not as secure history. Pergamum's library seems to have faded by dispersal, rather than by a single, visible death. Before either Alexandria or Pergamum, there stood Nineveh. In the 7th century BCE, under King Ashurbanipal, the Assyrian court assembled one of the best attested libraries of the ancient world. Tablets were collected and copied across palace and temple repositories, and many still bear colophons telling us who owned them, who copied them, and to what series they belonged. This was not a chance heap of clay tablets. It was a carefully ordered royal archive. Its contents were remarkably broad. The Epic of Gilgamesh, long omen series, lexical lists, rituals, medical texts, and works of astronomy and mathematics. Such a collection served rule, worship, and learned inquiry all at once. Knowledge spread here through scribal networks, linking Nineveh to Assyrian and Babylonian centers, where trained hands copied standard texts and carried them from one institution to another. Then came a turning point we can date with unusual precision. In 612 BCE, a coalition army took Nineveh. Rooms were broken open, tablets fell into layers of debris, and fire passed through the ruins. Yet clay answered fire differently than papyrus would have done. Many tablets were baked hard, and so endured beneath the rubble until archaeologists recovered them. Thus the library disappeared as a living institution, yet part of its contents survived as buried matter. Its afterlife was not continuous custody. It was excavation. Now we may compare the three. Alexandria was a palace academy sustained by royal wealth. Pergamum joined library, temple precinct, and civic display upon its height. Nineveh bound palace and temple repositories into the working machinery of empire. Their ways of spreading knowledge followed their forms. Alexandria gathered books aggressively, copied them, edited them, and sent learning outward through scholars and ports. Pergamum spread influence through patronage, prestige, and the growing use of parchment, though the old embargo story remains only a tradition. Nineveh spread knowledge through disciplined copying across scribal networks, with colophons preserving order and origin. Their materials also shaped their fate. Papyrus is light and swift to reproduce, yet vulnerable to damp and flame. Parchment is tougher and can be scraped and reused, though it is costly. Clay is heavy and slow, but under ruinous fire it can become more durable than before. So when we ask how libraries preserve wisdom, we must look not only at what they stored, but at the institutions and materials by which they moved words from one generation to another. What then do these libraries teach us? First, that loss is real and should be spoken of plainly. Scrolls vanished, buildings fell, and institutions broke apart. Yet a second truth stands beside the first. Knowledge survives when human beings copy carefully, teach faithfully, catalog clearly, and house texts in more than one place and form. The journey of Gilgamesh, from royal collection to burned ruin to excavation to modern reading, shows that survival is not magic. It is a chain of labor, memory, and material circumstance. Our own age is not exempt from the old question. If the walls fail, will the network endure? Open catalogs, shared standards, and many formats answer that question better than any single monument can. The ancient libraries are gone as living institutions, but their lesson remains. Wisdom lasts longest when it is copied widely, ordered well, and trusted to many hands.